Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to A Valid Answer with Scott and Marshall. We're a conservative, right-wing pastor, dukes it out verbally and intellectually with a, what are you calling yourself? A socialist, left-wing atheist?
Liberal, I suppose.
Liberal, yes. And so, yeah, just lots of fun on that. But yeah, we are here every Sunday night at 5. Thank you for tuning in today here at kerncast.com, Kerncast on Facebook. And you can also find us A Valid Answer on Facebook and search for A Valid Answer on iTunes podcasts and subscribe to those. Actually, if you look for it on YouTube, it's actually on YouTube as well. We get a lot of if we can get a lot of subscriptions to those, that would be awesome. But yeah, we love coming together and having this discussion, because the process of this discussion is what's going to change our world for the better. If more and more people do this, if more and more people have these types of discussions face to face and not, hidden behind some keyboard where, you can just, hide your identity and be however mean you want. But when you have to be civil to the person who's your friend, you end up learning from them, and you end up, communicating and sharing ideas. And I mean, what do you think, Marshall? You think that's the case?
Well, I think so. And one of the goals of this show is to kind of elevate the conversation, especially here in our home community.
Yes.
Let's quit talking so much about the weather and the sports scores, and let's start talking more about ideas. Because once we kind of get the ideas worked out, we can start voting our conscience. We can, approach problems with a new mind. And that's when change comes about, when we take a new approach to things. Instead of just saying, I'm going to vote straight ticket, Republican or Democrat, instead of just saying, I'm going to be this way because that's the way I was raised.
Keep talking. I'm going to check. I got to check something.
When you have a new mind, if you will, and you get a new mind by, getting into philosophy, talking about ideas, when these ideas clash, when they're tested in the crucible of conversation, things like that, you can literally change the community and the world in which you live. And you can bring about changes by voting for people who actually represent the ideas that you hold most dear. Because one of the problems that we see is that a lot of times...
Hey, real quick, we might have to start over. I mean, turns
Good,
out...
because I'm choking on the improv here.
Yeah, sorry about that. We thought we hit the button that said live, and it didn't actually go live. So
that's what I was afraid of. I was looking through here and
but we're on the right
it.
channel. We were on the right channel, so we're good. We're good with there. So yeah, we are live now. Sorry. Hey, welcome to A Valid Answer on kerncast.com. We're here every Sunday at 5 o'clock. Thank you for joining us. Those of you listening on the podcast, you're going to hear 2 intros, because I'm just going to run the whole thing. But those of you who just joined us on Kerncast, hey, we're not gonna hide, who we are. We're not gonna hide, if we make a mistake or anything like that. We're right there. We're right there with you guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna hide it, but that's just me.
Well, hey, Josh said we're having good levels online, so you can hear us. So that's good. So yes, good. Yeah, this is an important discussion. In what we do, we really believe in what we do, to take the time out to do this. And if you believe in what we do, you can financially back it. Sorry, okay.
Well, you can sponsor us, although I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work. We have put a PayPal link up on our A Valid Answer Facebook page. But really, I think the best thing to do would be to private message myself or Scott, or send an email to us at avalidanswer@gmail.com. Let us know that you would like to put your brand in our show. We reach, several hundred people easily each time we do a show. And
that's going to grow, because we got some news coming up in a little bit.
That's right. It's about to grow quite a lot.
Yes.
So I guess let's not keep them waiting. What's the news?
Well, the news is, for right now, starting tomorrow, we are going to expand, and we are actually going to have a second show Mondays at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you're still in the same place, kerncast.com, there was an opening in the programming, and we've been able to expand and have another show Monday afternoons. So tell your friends, maybe you watch this afterwards on Sunday because you're not free on Sunday, but you're available on Monday. Awesome. You can listen to us live, 4 o'clock on Mondays. We're starting tomorrow. It's going to be really, really good. We're excited about this. It's a whole new, possibility of new listeners and new viewers.
We're going to reach the weekday audience.
The weekday audience,
prime time,
exactly.
if you will.
Yes.
For podcasting.
So we're excited about that. So so starting tomorrow, 4:00 on Mondays. Don't miss that. Don't miss that. So we're gonna have different topics and different things going on. So
it's not the same show. It's a new show.
Yeah.
It's going to be double the work for us.
It is more. So double the work. So you're getting twice as much for your money.
Well, there you go.
And we're doing twice as much for what we're paid. What is twice of zero?
Yeah. Free.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. More shows. Yes, more shows. So we would love for you guys to join us, tell your friends about it and everything like that. But today we saw something a little bit in the news this week that it was sad for multiple reasons. Sad. You have a different reason why it was sad. You're sad for the possibility of what could have happened. I noticed that.
Yes, yeah, and, that is my primary concern.
But still, in any event, somebody dying early is still sad, whether or not you think it's their fault or not. But we are talking about this young missionary who got killed by some natives on an island he was not supposed to be on. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about the details of what happened. You were reading up on that.
I think the name was Jonathan Cho, or I'm not 100% certain on the last name.
I'm not sure.
Chow, right,
yeah, we're not certain.
But anyway, missionary Jonathan, 26 or 27 years old. I keep seeing different reports on that. Traveled to I think Sentinelese Island. And it is
it's between India and
Thailand.
Thailand, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's actually closer to Thailand, but it's controlled and administered by India.
Yep.
And there is on that island what's called an uncontacted tribe. Now, an uncontacted tribe are people who have never experienced any kind of significant contact with the outside world. They still live what seems to be a Stone Age type existence on this island. And they have no resistance to diseases like the flu or the measles, as far as we know. And they live according to their customs. And it's forbidden for people to even approach the island.
Forbidden by who? That way we would know we're all talking about the same
thing. The
Indian government, yeah.
Is forbidden. But the people themselves also forbid contact with outsiders, because people who have attempted to make contact with them in the past have been assaulted, killed.
Yeah.
They have been killed. I believe in the 1980s or maybe even in the 90s, they once went on shore. The Navy went up on shore and they tied a pig, a goat, and left a doll out there, tied them to a stake and figured, these are gifts, we'll see what the people do. And the instant they left the shore, the natives came out and killed the animals and buried everything.
Wow, didn't even eat them or anything like that.
Did not eat them, did not have anything to do with them.
So it was like you kill it, bury it, and no contact.
Exactly.
So are they displaying maybe even a knowledge or a conscience of that they have an understanding that something from the outside can
there is, in the 1800s, the British did land on the island and they took some people captive. Mm-hmm. They took a family captive, and the elders of the family died, and they returned the children to the island sometime later. And that's all we know. We don't know what happened with the children or anything.
Does anybody
like that.
speak the language?
Yes, because there are contacted tribes. It's an island chain. And there's a chain of islands, and the larger island has actually been, contacted, and if you will,
colonized.
I suppose you could use that term. And the languages are close enough that they can actually, understand one another.
Slightly different dialects, maybe, or something like that.
Right, or what you would even call a regionalect, which is a mutually intelligible difference between the language. But anyway. They're uncontacted, and nobody is supposed to contact them, because contact with the outside world could prove fatal to these people. Mm-hmm. And it's quite similar to the situation faced by indigenous people in the Amazon, mm-hmm. which are also, there's thousands of people who are uncontacted in the Amazon interior, and you are not allowed to go on the reservations or contact these people.
Gotcha.
And any kind of outsider, whether in the Amazon or here on this island, who attempts to come in from the outside will be attacked on sight. So
by the native tribes.
Right. These people have said, we don't want outsiders.
Gotcha.
We don't want you here. Don't come here.
Mm-hmm.
They're defending their border. No wall, but they are certainly defending their border. And in this case, you have
lethal force defending a border is acceptable?
Well, for these people, they're making their own rules as they go. They don't live by the same rules that the rest of us live by.
Okay, but isn't that something that the UN should step in on? If any other country in the world, if America started shooting people at the border, wouldn't other countries step in and say, you can't do that?
Well, if we start shooting people at the border, I'm pretty certain it would be some kind of a gross human rights violation.
Why is that not a human rights violation?
Well, first of all, an outsider coming onto an island or coming in contact with an uncontacted tribe poses a very real and serious existential threat to that civilization. Not only do they threaten the very survival of that civilization, they also threaten the health of its members. You could literally commit genocide without intending to do so. And we know this because we look at our own history. We look at what happened to the Native Americans. Over 100 million people died following the Columbian Exchange, which is contact between Europeans and Native Americans, North and South America. Over the following century after contact with Columbus, 100 million, that's the estimate. It's around, the numbers vary, but the approximate estimate is 100 million Native Americans perished from communicable diseases against which they had no immunity.
Isn't that preventable now? Couldn't you go in with a medical team and allay those fears?
You have to do that prior to exposure. You would have to vaccinate people, and not every disease has a vaccination. Mm-hmm. So you can still make people sick with things, for example, like the flu or the measles or what have. Like, you can vaccinate against the measles, but in the course of vaccinating, you would actually expose them to the illness. And the way a vaccination works is it takes a little bit of time for the body to recognize and produce the antibodies, recognize the disease, produce the antibodies, so that you can build up the immune resistance. The immune resistance is not instant. It takes time. So you would actually still kill people even if you send a team in to vaccinate. Gotcha.
So, so I guess it comes down to, do they have a sovereign right for their land?
Well, apparently they seem to, and certainly they're exercising it, right?
And I'm just trying to find out. This is not even the side talk. This is not even the topic that I was wanting to go under. But just as a a rhetorical discussion, or just, is it okay for them to defend their land that way? Would we as a society allow any other country in our society to react to a person trying to cross the border in the same way? Should we react to that and say, no, you can't do that? Is that within the purview of, say, something like the UN or a global society to say, just because someone comes on your island doesn't give you a right to kill them? Or are they a sovereign realm? And if that's okay with them, should we all just back off and let them be that?
It comes down to the level of threat that the outsider poses. If, for example, Germany is invading the Soviet Union, then nobody's going to say it's a violation of Germany's the human rights to bomb and attack the invading German army.
Gotcha. It'd have to be an act of war.
Well, yeah, it would pretty much be an act of war, right? So when we deal with people, for example, people coming in from south of the border and they're illegally immigrating here, they are not an existential threat to us. They are not under arms.
I'm not even about to try to make that argument.
They're not bringing some kind of communicable disease that could wipe out our population. Now, if there was some sort of strange disease outbreak, a la some science fiction movie, right, and people were trying to come in, then I think people would agree, yes, you would activate the military, send them to the border, set up sort of what you'd call a dead zone and say nobody can come into this no man's land because
you see that in like zombie movies,
right?
And
exactly,
all those crazy movies where it's like, no, they quarantine off certain areas and they barricade and
So I think it comes down to threat level.
Gotcha.
Now, I don't know whether or not the natives are acting because they are aware of some sort of existential threat. I would say they do perceive an existential threat. I don't know if they're aware of the health implications of contact. They may or may not be. But I don't know what they know also not about the outside world.
Are they also not aware of the health benefits that could come with it too?
Well, I would imagine that the harms outweigh the benefit. Absolutely.
So modern medicine would be more of a harm to them.
No, modern medicine would probably provide a net benefit, but only after an initial collapse.
Is that worth it?
And do you survive the collapse?
Is that worth it?
What would be worth 90% of your family members and loved ones perishing? What could possibly be worth that?
If generations after me could flourish.
Well, okay, Darwin, but here's another way to reframe your thinking. Let's say an alien civilization, superior to ours in every way, came down to Earth, but in doing so and making first contact with humans on Earth, they would be introducing some sort of alien pathogen which would kill, 9/10 of our population. Are we going to say, come on in?
What if they show up saying, we know we have pathogens, but we also have medications that will make them better for you, that will cause you to be able to be immune to this? Would you allow them to give you their medicine?
Yeah, I imagine it would come down to whether or not I trusted them, and if I believed that the cure would take effect before the illness. Because at the end of the day, I, as a parent, would not do anything that would endanger one of my children.
Right.
Period. Even if it were a 10% chance. No, only 10% chance of death, but a 90% chance of a better life. I'm not going to take that risk. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have parents right now who have access to modern healthcare and even vaccines, which are virtually 100% effective.
Yeah.
Not completely 100, but pretty darn close to 100%, well over 99% effective. And you have an entire population here in the United States that refuses to vaccinate their children because they cite that little teeny tiny risk. So
you would be a non-vaxxer in that situation.
On the contrary, I would want that vaccination, but the problem is I don't think the vaccination, because it's how immune systems work, I don't think the vaccination would take effect prior to dying from the illness. And I'm not going to tolerate a 90% extinction rate, or even a 10% extinction rate, or even 1%. Mm-hmm. I understand that 1 or 2, okay, I mean, there might be some level of acceptable risk, but there's no scenario that I'm aware of where an uncontacted tribe would have an acceptable level of risk, even if it's a medical team that goes in.
Gotcha. But at the same time, you're making the assumption, that there are deadly pathogens that will kill them.
Well, I don't think that's an assumption. I think that's certain knowledge.
You're saying this like this is the first time we've ever contacted uncontacted people.
No, we have a long history of contacting uncontacted people and infecting them with illnesses.
In modern times. No, not in modern times.
I'm pretty sure in the Amazon.
Your references are all over 100 years old.
No. Even today in the Amazon.
The references that you just mentioned are all over 100 years old.
Sometimes people in the Amazon choose to come out of contact. Mm-hmm. They choose to come into contact with the civilized world. They choose to leave their native tribe and move closer to civilization. I don't know exactly what the protocols are, but there is a protocol. Yeah. And sometimes those people do die. They do get sick and they do die. Mm-hmm. But there is a protocol because there are people who have left uncontacted tribes in South America and tried to kind of more or less assimilate into not quite full-on civilization, but into some sort of in-between state living in a reserved area that's set aside for them. They actually have to be protected from both sides. Yeah. When that happens, they have to be protected from the natives who they left, and they have to be protected more or less from the modern world, which can easily kill them.
Josh has a good question. He says, what basis would they have to accept a basis for trusting outside medicine? Your question, of the aliens coming in, could we trust if they say, here's this?
Right. How do you know they're not here for the resources and this is their way of depopulating the planet?
Right. And that's a very good question. I guess it just comes down to do you trust them? So should we not make the effort?
No.
At any time?
No, it's up to them. If they choose to invite outside contact, then we would think about how to go about doing it. But they're a sovereign people. They have their own civilization, their own culture, their own religious beliefs, we imagine. Mm-hmm. It's up to them. We have got this wrong 999 times out of 1,000. Let's try to get it right that one time, All
right. So, meteorite hits their island, and their island is burning. Do we go rescue them?
Okay, so in 2014, I think it was, there was a tsunami, right?
Yep.
They flew helicopters over the island to check on the people.
Yep.
So similar to what you're saying here,
Yep.
natural disaster, do we go in and help? The helicopters made sort of a welfare check. They passed low over the island. They shot arrows at the helicopters.
Okay.
And from what they could tell, the population survived, was healthy, was thriving.
That's fine. So it wasn't a threat. What if it's an actual threat? The island is burning down. They're all escaping. It's coming. It's burning. Do we go rescue them? Or do we let their civilization die because they don't want help?
If they ask for help, if they are fleeing the island in boats or something, then yes, obviously, I think we try to lend a hand.
What if they don't? What if they don't know that they're in danger?
They may not.
So do you still rescue them if you know they're in danger, but they don't? Do you still attempt to rescue? Do you violate their sovereignty to attempt to rescue if they don't know that they're in trouble? Or do you let them die? You know they're in trouble.
I let them decide.
They don't know. How do they even decide? You can't even get the information to them without making contact. Do you rescue them? Do you give them the information? Do you let them decide? Or do you let them die?
Yeah, I think you get the information to them, but you would do so through an interpreter or through a recording or any number of means that don't require close physical contact.
Okay.
I mean, you could actually literally put on a suit that would prevent, the exchange of harmful, things.
So
it would have to be a suit of armor while also being a biohazard suit, I suppose. But you could also stand offshore with a loudspeaker and communicate to them. You would have to be behind some kind of defensive screen that would protect you from an arrow. Mm-hmm. But there would be ways, I think, to communicate to these people in a language they would understand, that there is some sort of danger or risk, and then it would be up to them to decide how to respond.
So going back to the alien thing, if they come in a armored spaceship with a speaker talking in our language, is that more trustworthy or less trustworthy than them coming onto our ground to see us face to face? Who would you trust more? Who would you trust more?
Yeah, I don't know.
Come on.
I probably wouldn't trust either one, frankly.
But which one is more lends more to being trusted?
I think it would depend on the content of the message that's being communicated. Then, I think a minority of people are going to believe it. Most people are still going to be skeptical and say no.
But isn't it worth saving a minority?
Yeah, I think, you should try to save human life if you can, because obviously the one thing we've established in this discussion is that human life is the critical value.
Yes.
We want to do what will preserve the most lives and hopefully preserve a whole human civilization.
Can you fault someone? Can you fault someone who believes that these people are in danger and wants to go in and make contact so that they can choose whether or not to be rescued? Can you fault someone's thinking for saying, I believe they're in danger? I believe now they're believing that their souls are in danger, but they truly believe these people, their souls are in danger because no one is brave enough to go and make contact with them. Can you fault someone for thinking, I want to do what I can to save their souls? They don't know that they're in danger. I want to give them the option to make that choice for themselves. Can you fault someone for thinking that way?
Yes, because first of all, the threat's imaginary. In my personal opinion, the whole idea of Satan and what have you is imaginary. Second of all, we know what happens when humans carrying pathogens make contact with an uncontacted tribe, civilization. It destroys the civilization. So this person took it upon himself to break multiple laws. It doesn't save lives. It might save souls, but we haven't established that a soul exists.
But I'm going to get into, this is not the first time this has happened. This is not the first time a missionary has been killed. It's not the first time a missionary has made first contact. And there is a history behind an entire civilization getting health care, an entire civilization finding God, an entire civilization being saved because a missionary went in and got killed.
Okay, now there is...
It took 20 years. It was 15, 20 years later after he died.
There is no reason it requires a Christian missionary.
Well, where's the atheist missionaries? Where are they at? They don't seem to be motivated enough to do anything.
I think it's called Doctors Without Borders, but what have you. But anyway, there's no reason why religion plays a unique role here. There can be people from any walk of life, or anybody can go in and attempt to make contact and improve these people's lives and bring them health care and bring them modern civilization
anybody can.
and conveniences.
I'm just saying there is a certain motivation that Christians have to do that and have done that for centuries to bring betterness to people.
This young man,
this actually happened to a young man.
Should have known better. He certainly knew that he was circumventing laws.
Yes.
He should have received enough education right out of high school to understand that making contacted with uncontacted people is literally a genocidal existential threat to that civilization. He should have known better. I think he was acting out of selfishness. He wanted to be this famous missionary, if you will. Thought he was going to be.
That's a good argument.
Saint Francis Xavier.
I don't want to make that assumption about a deceased person and their motives and stuff like that. But I can see how that can be a logical argument. I can see where you're going with that.
So here he is doing that, and he could have killed all these people if he wanted to help people, which I understand Christians love to help people, right? Mm-hmm. He could have helped people in his own neighborhood.
But there's plenty of resources to help the people in his own neighborhood. He's looking at a place where he feels these people their lives are in danger and nobody's reaching out to them.
Why are their lives in danger?
That's what he's saying. How
are their lives in danger?
If they're
living peacefully on this island.
If their souls are in danger.
Okay, well, aren't people's souls in danger right here?
Yes, and there's
holy cow! Look, my soul's in danger.
And there's plenty of resources. I invited you to church today because there's dozens and dozens of churches around here that are resources that you can choose to go to, but there aren't. So this person is saying these souls are in danger, and there is not a single resource for them. I could be a resource for them. Why not just take the people? Because there's plenty of resources here for the people around here. There's no resource there. What if I can be a resource for them to save their soul?
How would you feel if the missionary were a Muslim?
I don't care if that's what he wants to do. I'm
okay with that?
Yes.
You're okay with a Muslim going and converting a whole island to Islam?
I don't like that it's happening, but at the same time, if I understand his motivation.
Mm-hmm. Well, I understand his logic and his motivation too, so far as it can be understood. I don't agree with it. I don't accept it. I don't support it. I think he should have been arrested and prosecuted.
It has happened in 1956. It did happen. There were a group of three men who flew their plane into the deep jungles of Ecuador to the Wadani people, I think is what it was called. Mm-hmm. The Wadani people, and they'd been flying over before. They had gotten arrows shot at their plane before. They were dropping packages to them and trying to drop food and all this kind of stuff to make first contact with them because they felt that their souls were in danger. And eventually they made They landed the plane on a beach. They eventually tried to make contact. They were killed on the beach of the river. I say it's a beach. I guess it's more of a riverbank. But they landed their plane on this long riverbank. They eventually got killed. But something happened spiritually there that affected the people. And 15, 20 years later, when modern medicine came in, when it was 15, 20 years later, when World Health Organization, whatever it was coming in to bring food and medication to these people, that the son of the person who had gotten killed eventually met the person who killed his father. And this person had told him the story about when he killed his father of something spiritual that happened in him and something spiritual that happened with them. And eventually everybody in that tribe found Jesus. Eventually everybody in that tribe, it took 15, 20 years, but that event was not wasted. That something spiritual happened in that event that we don't see with our own eyes.
And what happened to that tribe of people? Did they get sick?
No, they're still
to their civilization. What happened to their culture?
That civilization in particular was a very warrior civilization that was killing itself out. And because eventually they found Christ, and that civilization grew, that they currently still live there and are growing and flourishing because previously their civilization was a warrior civilization that was driving themselves extinct. It was literally not only saving their souls, it was also saving their lives because their own way of life was killing themselves off through a warrior civilization. I'm very skeptical
about that.
No, it actually happened.
How did they make it to the 20th century if they had such a fierce way of life that they were killing themselves off?
They were bigger than they were, and then they're no longer bigger than they were.
Or could it be that there was a momentary change in their conditions that caused upheaval? And then once those conditions had been rectified, perhaps through inner fighting and warfare, then it would have stopped and they would have gone back to a different state. They would have reverted to a more peaceful state.
That was not their history.
Okay, but if their history is so violent,
and that was not their future.
Extinct previously,
and that was not their future.
No,
their future is now. Their future is now living in peace because these missionaries visited them.
If you read the work of Jared Diamond, he talks about why certain civilizations collapse, why they break down into warfare. Has a lot to do with resources, population density, and it's different compared, for one area versus another. But basically what ends up happening is you get sort of this Malthusian collapse scenario where you have too many people in too small an area, and then their native culture breaks down, particularly when you have outside influences coming in. You get some sort of cultural upheaval. We know this happened in the Pacific Islands, the cargo cults, because during World War II there are a lot of uncontacted tribes on islands in the South Pacific, and they encountered military forces doing different things, not necessarily on their islands. But the cargo cults developed. And we found after the war, when we went and made contact with some of these people, we learned that their civilizations collapsed because, the silver birds would bring the goodies and drop the goodies on the island, oftentimes by mistake. And these goodies included magazines and radios and chocolate and other food and other things that they liked. But the priests couldn't make the birds come back. So their entire societies were literally reversed. They were put on end. They killed their priests because the priests couldn't make the goodies come back. They didn't realize there was a war going on. The war had ended or what have you. And that's very traumatic. Now, those societies are still there. The people are still there. They are more modern. They now have medicine, television, and all that. Are they better off? I don't know. I don't know that
the progressive doesn't know if they're better off because of modernization.
Well, I mean,
it seems like you are going against your very fundamental belief so you can win this argument. You're literally arguing that modernism in a society is not better.
Well, what I'm saying is
that's a progressive saying that
indigenous ways of life they exist for a reason, and when those conditions or reasons change, then the culture adapts. But they don't necessarily drive themselves extinct through warfare. So is it better to leave indigenous people as indigenous people, or is it better to say, hey, come on, you're coming with us all to the 21st century, even if it means 90% of you die and your old culture and civilization goes extinct?
What do you say as a progressive?
I think it's better to leave people to decide for themselves how to be.
But how can they make a decision if they don't know what the options are?
Well, it's up to them.
It's not a decision anymore. It's not a decision. You're not even offering them a choice.
Right, because offering them a choice could upset their civilization as it is. Because that's what happened. So it's better for them to live in ignorance. When the silver birds flew over and dropped the goodies.
It's better for them to live in ignorance.
Maybe. So why not?
So why would you?
Why? I mean, wouldn't it be better would indigenous people agree that it would be better for the Americas to still be populated with their native people and not Europeans?
Well, let me bring it back to you in another religious form that you have constantly made the argument that you would not want that you wish that you could believe that God is real, but you can't live in that ignorance.
Correct.
But you're saying it's okay for them to live in their ignorance, that it's better for them to live in their ignorance.
How so?
You just said it's better for them to live in their ignorance. For us not to give them an option. I
don't know that it's ignorance.
That's it's literally ignorance. They don't know. I don't mean that in an insulting way. Ignorance means to not know. They are ignorant of certain things. They are ignorant of of modern technologies. They are ignorant. It's not an insult. It's just literally the definition of the word. They do not know. I'm not trying to be insulting or anything like that. They're literally ignorant of
get
things.
All right. Yeah.
Is it better to leave people in their ignorance? Would it have been better for God not to put the tree of knowledge in there?
But I'm arguing, it would have been better had he not put that tree in there.
But isn't it atheists who make the argument that God is really the bad guy because because he was trying to keep them ignorant. That Satan was the good guy who told them the truth, that if you know that, you'll be just like God. Isn't that an argument you've used before, that Satan is the good guy because he brought knowledge?
Well, that's a meme, actually.
Right,
I haven't quite made that argument. But Satan doesn't exist, so there is no good or bad.
I understand that, but I'm saying
Okay.
you have used that as an argument before on why God is bad. That he didn't tell the whole truth and he wanted to keep them ignorant.
Because if God it does exist and God is real, he went through a very long and complicated process to bring about the fall of man and then to save man, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
He didn't bring about the fall of man.
Well, he certainly set the conditions for it.
He set the conditions for choice.
Okay, well...
Which is the conditions you don't want to set.
He didn't like the choice that the humans make, so he punished the humans, and then he went about a very complex and convoluted circuitous route to save humans from for a thought crime for conditions that he created. Which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but now we've really gotten off the topic.
Well, I mean, but
here.
no, not really. Can you hold somebody accountable to a choice you give them? Is that not unreasonable to hold someone accountable to a choice?
People have to understand the implications of the choice they're making in order to make a choice. And I'm okay with giving people the choice and respecting their choices, but not if the choice is going to result in 90% of them dying.
So it's okay to let them live in ignorance.
If the alternative is 90% of you have to die so that 10% of you can start to enjoy, modern conveniences, so do we really have to bring cell phones to the island and get them hooked on social media? I mean, is it really better? I'm not okay with the likelihood that many of these people will die upon first contact. I'm not okay with that.
Okay.
Now, if that were not an issue, I would not have such a problem with people going to the island
think it is
and communicating with the people and offering them more of a choice.
I don't think in this modern age of medicine, I don't think that is as big of an issue as you are making it out to be.
Well, I think it's a significant issue, though.
To see that
how many people are you okay with dying to give them your choice?
To see that this worked in 1956 and you didn't have an entire civilization get wiped out. In fact, you had an entire civilization grow because of the contact made by the Christians.
Well, I don't know what the conditions were for that civilization, why they didn't die.
Okay, so if we can
so
if we can study the conditions and understand that, then that would be okay to bring that benefit to them if there's enough study. It feels like you're making an assumption. It feels like you're cutting off a whole plethora of things that could benefit people because you're like, well, it could happen. It happened 500 years ago, so it could happen, even though we have modern medicine.
It will happen. If you make contact with these people, they will die. A large number of them will die.
And that's not what happened. And that's not what happened. And that's not what happened in this situation.
No, they killed the person.
No. But the indigenous people didn't die from medical
You're
problems.
talking about Ecuador.
I'm talking about Ecuador.
And we don't know. I don't know why they didn't die.
Okay.
But it would seem to me they've probably already survived initial contact. They've survived the Columbian exchange on some level. And they must have obviously had some kind of disease resistance.
So now
Otherwise, they would have been wiped out by the missionaries.
So now you are assuming that there has to be other evidence that you cannot find in order for your argument to stand.
I don't know. It hasn't been studied. I don't know anything about how these people.
But you know enough to make an assumption. But you know enough to make an assumption that there had to be something else.
I know how infectious diseases work, and I will tell you: if you expose a person to a deadly infectious disease, they will die. Period. That's science. That's biology 101. So if we go to this island where this missionary tried to go, and these people have no history of exposure to this,
and you know that,
I can guarantee you, yes, they will die.
No, but you know that they have no exposure to it.
Well, obviously not. The only contact they had was more than 200 years ago. And that was very brief, and with the British soldiers. And then
so what about the other islands?
We don't know.
What about the other islands?
Other islands are contacted.
Was there a genocide when they were contacted?
Well, what I do know...
Was there a genocide when those islands were contacted?
I don't know.
Okay.
No,
but you're willing to make the assumption. But you're willing to make the assumption. You're willing to make the assumption without evidence.
Native people who live on those islands do not have a very high standard of living.
Okay. But what I'm saying is, you're saying that the genocide will happen. Did it happen on the other islands? And if you don't know, then why are you making that assumption without evidence? You're
right. I don't know.
You don't know. You're making an assumption without evidence, and you're blocking off an entire way of possibly bringing good to a group of people because you're making an assumption on no evidence that would probably kill them. Even though there are instances that we can see now where that didn't happen.
I would wager that the people on the island would be susceptible to Western diseases.
Okay. But I feel that
diseases from the outside world.
Gotcha. And I feel that if you believe that these people are in danger, that you're willing to risk your life to give them a hope and give them a way out of this danger. I don't think that this particular missionary, and I don't know the details, but it does not seem that this particular missionary was as prepared as the story that I found here, of what they did beforehand, of the studying that they did beforehand, that they personally
he spent
did.
years preparing.
Yeah.
But I think he asked all the wrong questions. He was thinking of it from a Christian perspective.
Right.
Rather than a medical health perspective.
Medical, yeah. So if you're going in, I think if you're planning it with a medical team and you're doing this, I think there is a good, solid reasoning to want to save people.
But at the end of the day, these particular people have made it very clear they don't want us there. Period. Mm-hmm. They made it very clear. So who are we to keep forcing our way onto their island, saying that we somehow know or have something better for them? Who are we to violate their sovereignty?
Who are you as a socialist to tell me how to live my life?
Well, we live in civilization. We live in a society that's different. We don't live in, this. I'm not talking about.
But you're still
I'm talking about the exploitation of workers in socialism.
Right, but I'm talking about
in the same society.
Right,
together.
and I'm talking about you feel it's okay to tell me how to live, but you don't feel it's okay for us to tell them how to live.
How am I telling you how to live by saying you deserve a living wage when you work? How is that telling you how to live? And I'm certainly not threatening to bring, I'm not threatening you with genocide or bringing, harmful diseases to you. Mm-hmm. So it's completely different. This is very much apples and oranges. Again, if you could eliminate
the basic idea.
If you could eliminate the threat of genocide, I would be more open to making some kind of contact with these people and saying this is what the outside world has to offer, and if you are interested, here's how you can access these things.
Exactly. Look at that. A breakthrough in just 45 minutes.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with you, Scott.
But that's exactly my point. That you were stuck behind an assumption. You were stuck behind an assumption that you have realized if that assumption is not actually real, then there is a valid reason why someone could want to go in there and help people. That before we started this, you said there was no reason.
I'm okay with giving people a choice.
Yep.
But you have to give them a choice that doesn't also involve genocide.
Okay.
Okay. If genocide is anywhere in that equation, no, I am not okay with that.
So make sure you have your shots for them.
Well, no, because you can still carry the pathogen even if you don't have symptoms and so on.
Okay, so no, you're right. Make sure you are somehow inoculated, whether by medical or by some sort of hazmat suit or something like that. Somehow you are inoculated in some way that you cannot pass pathogens to them.
Well, you would have to stay pretty far from them because once you get within 3 feet, you can transfer illnesses.
Right, but I'm saying if they're in some sort of suit, if they are in some sort of.
But remember, they've also made very clear they don't want the outside world. I think it's obvious to them that the outside world is somehow more advanced than they are.
Yep.
Has more technology. They have things that they do not have. They have things like clothes. The native people of South America say they like clothes. The uncontacted people who have come out said they like some of these modern conveniences when they've come out. Nonetheless, knowing that, they still insist on remaining uncontacted.
What if there's people in their civilization who want to get out and they're being prevented by their own people?
That's probably happening.
Don't they deserve the human rights of the choice?
But that's something that has to be worked out within their own society, within their own civilization.
We don't have a responsibility to help them?
Not necessarily, no. We have our own society here that we have to work on. I'm going to work on my society.
So as long as those human rights violations are within that society, we don't have to step in.
Well, first of all, we don't know that a human rights violation is taking place.
That's true.
Okay.
We don't know.
But
if it were, should we step in? If we discovered it was, should we step in? Or should we allow them to continue these human rights violations?
No, because the problem is stepping in involves genocide. Remember, genocide is part of the equation.
You find a way.
The answer is always no.
You find a way to approach them to where you're not going to pass anything on to them. You have your hazmat suits, whatever it is that you're going to do. But do you let human rights violations continue to happen if you find out that they are? Do you let them happen simply because...
From a practical perspective, I don't think that's realistic or possible. From a theoretical perspective, if it were possible, I would say yes, I would want to go in and help people.
Okay, cool.
I would want to help people, but again, from a practical perspective, I don't even see how that's remotely possible.
Right. Technology can allow a lot of things that used to not be possible to be possible, but it's the idea. I'm trying to get you to see the idea that there are legitimate reasons why we would need to step into a civilization.
Okay,
there are legitimate...
Saving people from an imaginary make-believe religious threat and exposing them to the danger of genocide is not acceptable to me.
Okay.
I understand that you want to help people, but no, I'm not okay with that.
To save their souls and see that it has been done in the past, I feel that it is possible. Well, it has been. There's literally an example of it actually happening.
We're going to have to just disagree on that.
Okay.
I don't think the planet is better off for the Columbian Exchange.
I believe your soul is worth it. I believe your soul is worth it. I've seen it happen. Missionaries have lost their lives so that the people there could find God, and that they did, and that their civilization came out better for it. That has actually happened. That's real. And I believe that it's worth it.
And I don't believe that the past 500 years of genocide and human tragedy is worth it. So I don't even want to repeat it, even on a micro scale of one island. So that's my take on it.
Okay. Your evidence is 500 years old. Excellent. Sounds good.
It's biology.
Hey, this has been a valid answer with Scott and Marshall. We would say see you next week, but guess what? We get to see you tomorrow. 4:00 right here on kerncast.com. Find us on Kerncast on Facebook. And then, search for us, A Valid Answer. You'll find us on Facebook, A Valid Answer on iTunes podcasts. And definitely hit us up if you want to contact us, validanswer@gmail.com. Until next time, which will be tomorrow. Signing off. Catch you guys later.
See you then.